Everyone, welcome back to the Mind of Sai Marie. Today's guest has a truly unique story that sits at the intersection of technology and history. Robert McMillen is the author of the book This Is It, where he shares his firsthand account on working on some of the most significant tech projects in recent memory, including the restoration of the emails that helped bring down Enron. Robert, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Oh, and thank you for having me.
So, your book, This Is It, chronicles your experience with a number of high stakes tech jobs, including your role in the Enron investigation. What was it about these particular experiences that made you feel compelled to share your story in a book?
Well, that's a really good question. I've been telling my experiences to my students for many years. I'm a college professor, and I've been encouraged by them as well as by colleagues to write some of these stories down as they are a part of history of what was once this new field of IT work when I started it in the late 80s. Also, there was a lot of behind the scenes type of things that never saw the light of day in any of the Enron documentaries. And I thought people would find that interesting.
I absolutely agree with that. And transparency is a really big thing, especially now, but it was back then too. By the way, I had no idea that you were a professor, but that is awesome to hear as well.
Thank you. Yes,
So,
I've been teaching since 2011, and I was running my company, managed service provider, MSP company is what we call it nowadays. And at the same time, I was teaching, and it was just a great thing at the end of the day just to go and share that knowledge with my students.
yeah, I can see that. I really appreciate when I'm able to kind of impart education on people as well. So, the Enron scandal is a landmark event in recent history. From your unique perspective, what was the moment you realized the true scope and significance of the emails you were restoring?
Well, when I walked into the trading floor of Enron, which was located in the Portland General Electric building in the World Trade Center, and by the way, the World Trade Center bombings had just happened a few weeks before. We were walking into the World Trade Center. We were all, a little bit skittish, walking in there wondering, are they targeting other trade centers? We just didn't know. And so as I walked in, I saw the amount of money that was changing hands. It was just like a regular trading floor in the New York Stock Exchange, just a little bit smaller, but the same kind of idea. And there was this huge buffet to keep the employees from ever wanting to leave. I mean, they wanted those employees to be there all day long. And there was even trading manuals all over the bathrooms. I mean, they just wanted people just to continue stealing money from people in California as long as they could get away with it. Now, I thought this was a big deal just by looking at the trading floor and watching what was happening. But when I started to read the Enron emails about, how they were, paying people off in California to keep the electricity providers in maintenance mode for way longer than they needed to be, that's when I started realizing, okay, this is something really big. And I realized that this was really the story of the decade. And the things that happened while I was there for those 2 weeks, were really crazy.
So, you make a point in your message that your book is accessible to non technical readers. Why was it important to you to make this complex subject matter understandable to a broader audience?
Well, if you watch a lot of TV, you'll see that not a lot of TVs, movies, or even books portray the complexity of what we do in IT. As soon as people see the reality of it, a lot of people's minds go numb, like taking a calculus class. And so I wanted to bring this to a level where everyone could appreciate what was happening without needing a lot of prior technical knowledge.
That is awesome. So, beyond Enron, you've worked on other history making tech jobs. Can you share a story from one of those projects that you found particularly challenging or rewarding?
Absolutely. So I would say the beginning of cloud computing. Now, if I take you back to the early 2000s, where there was no video streaming. And if you wanted to go to Netflix, you had to wait for the DVD to show up in the mail, that kind of thing. Or you would go, to one of these other video places. Well, the beginning of cloud computing and video streaming happened for a lot of us in the United States, where we tried inventing this technology in our garages and our homes, including cloud computing, things like that. Now, the reason why a lot of us did this in our homes was because we had better internet speed than you could get in businesses due to home density levels. Homes that were all right next to each other were a much better target for Cast and AT&T and T and some of these other ones than businesses that were really spread out. So businesses got much lower internet speeds. So I brought my team together and we created a private cloud in my garage and our extra spare bedrooms. So a private cloud basically means that this is something that is controlled by an individual or by a company, and they allow other people who are interested in purchasing services from these companies to be able to do so, on a level where basically we bill them out monthly for various different things. Now, we sold a lot of different services, such as email, website hosting, spam filtering, all these different things that were coming right out of my home. And it was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. If you remember back to the Hillary Clinton email issue where they said there was a mail server that was in an IT guy's bathroom. That makes perfect sense to me because that's the kind of stuff that we did back then because we had so much better bandwidth than the businesses. As a matter of fact, I even found Hillary Clinton's email in that IT person's bathroom. I found it online. I didn't try to log into it because I knew it would be illegal, but I just thought it was interesting how easy it was to find it. The effort we put into creating this private cloud for our customers was mind-blowing. I mean, it took a lot of brain power to create this and make it work. Then one day, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, Google, they decided they would do the same thing that we were doing. They were saying, hey, these guys are making all this money. We should be making that money. So they announced Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, Google Services, and overnight they undercut us. I mean, they charged half of what we were charging. And we lost that part of our business within a year. And many of us who did this kind of work are now working in the data centers for Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, as we were the ones who invented it. So they needed people like us to go in and help them set it all up. Now, of course, all these companies, these three major companies, which make up the majority of what's going on, they have driven us out of business. But now they've, of course, exceeded what we were charging our clients because there's not as much competition as there used to be. So it was a very profitable part of our business. It wasn't the only part, but it was a profitable part. And now we can see that it's pretty much dried up for us in that kind of a realm.
The way that the world evolves, right?
Exactly.
What's the biggest misconception people have about the work of a forensic IT specialist or the process of digital restoration?
Yeah, that's a really great thing for people to understand. So if you've ever seen TV shows like CIS type shows and 24, if you remember that show that was on a few years back, it really cracks me up to see how they make you think that they can decrypt documents, that have been encrypted by a criminal, that you can decrypt these documents in just a few minutes and then put them into a PDF and go arrest the bad guys. The reality is it could take thousands of computers, centuries, to decrypt modern encryption techniques. And it's not something that can be done easily. As a matter of fact, a lot of people who get arrested by the FBI and other places basically are putting, the hackers or whoever's, the bad guy in this case, they put those people in jail until they give them the encryption password so they can decrypt their documents because there's no way for the FBI or anybody else to decrypt those documents.
The work you do requires immense precision and attention to detail, obviously. How do you handle the pressure of knowing that your findings could have major legal or historical implications?
At first I just wanted to be an IT guy. I worked as an employee, then eventually I started my own business. And these crazy jobs just sort of fell into my lap at a time that I just wasn't anticipating. And so at first, it made me lose sleep at night and it gave me heart palpitations. But then, like any high pressure job, such as an air traffic controller, certain jobs like that, you kind of get used to it. And you pretend that taking down a pedophile employee for a client or stopping a corrupt company is really just another day.
Yeah. So, how has the field of digital forensics changed since the early 2000s, and what new challenges or opportunities do you see on the horizon? And this also really is going to go into kind of the whole AI thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what hasn't changed, let me start with that. What hasn't changed is almost nobody knows how to cover their tracks. It's a bit like someone committing a homicide and the adrenaline kicks in and the murderers just don't think very clearly. And the same happens with hackers. They leave breadcrumbs that aren't that hard to find in most cases. However, finding corruption and proving it in a court of law is very difficult. And that's because anyone can claim that they were hacked themselves and didn't actually commit that crime at all. I do see AI working more for the hackers than the victims going forward. We are entering a new age, as you know. Things are going to be less secure for a while until we figure out a better mousetrap. The hackers definitely have the upper hand and will for probably the next decade. It's going to take us that long in order to figure out how to keep AI from being smarter than our defenses. The same thing happened in the early 2000s. One of the great things about the stories in my book is that you're going to see history repeat itself over and over. In the beginning, there was no antivirus, there was no anti-malware, yet hackers were, sending out these viruses and making all kinds of money. And it took us a long time to create these defensive strategies. The same thing is happening now with AI. One of the things I can say that could really help you, besides not clicking on links, in emails, is to not use public Wi-Fi. And by using public Wi-Fi, you open yourself up to hackers potentially taking over your computer, reading all of your emails as they pass through, and what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. I also recommend you don't use Wi-Fi on planes and hotels. That's also a place where you can get.
Always consider your digital footprint.
That's true.
So, you've seen firsthand how technology can be used for both positive and negative purposes. What lesson do you think the public should learn from stories like Enron in the digital age?
Facebook, TikTok, and X, along with other social media, are not out for your mental health or other benefit. What they really want is ad money. They don't care about the damage it causes our society while they do it. But it's not just social media, it's every large international company. They will pretend to be socially conscious just long enough to change public perception before going right back to their old ways. It's just like a policeman. I have seen the terrible things that judges, ministers, the philanthropists, and other seemingly good people can do. The biggest complaint I've had from clients that are churches is how to stop parishioners from surfing pornography during church services. Just look at anybody's browser history and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Wow, that is a stunning revelation.
Yeah, it blew me away too.
But I mean, from your end and the things that you've seen, I'm sure at this point, it's just the kinds of things that's the biggest thing about that digital footprint. It will come out somewhere and you will be surprised who might find out things about you if you're not conscientious about what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned having a large social media presence. How has sharing your story online shaped your perspective on your work and its impact?
I've received many great reviews and comments from people who follow me online. They're mostly comments saying that they were surprised about what was really happening in the online world. Now, most of my followers are not following me because I put out really cool videos of me dancing or anything like that. Most of my followers are students who have taken my courses in colleges and universities around the world. I make educational courses for various different companies, and then they put those out, and then colleges and universities buy those or rent them, and then that's how people learn about things like cybersecurity and forensics and other IT fields. And I think that the comments and things like that, when I'm reading, it gives the students a perspective that they wouldn't otherwise see or hear from most professors. I think what a lot of students don't realize is when they go to a college, they think they're getting a professor who may have been doing this as a job prior to teaching. But what I found is that most professors go right from graduating college into teaching, and they've never actually done the work themselves. So when I tell these stories to my students, they put down their smartphones, they stop looking at their computer, their mouths drop open, and they go, wow, this is a crazy world.
Yes, but that is also a very, very important point, is the mentorship from someone who actually has the experience. It's almost like apprenticeship, how it used to be.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome because it's a very unique way to hear about what they're going into. And I think that that's also a prompt there for young people who are interested in going into IT. Robert is obviously the guy that can break it down and make it interesting instead of boring and mundane. That's awesome.
That is what I hope to do.
So, what advice would you give to young people today who are interested in a career in cybersecurity or digital forensics?
To start out with, have a big bottle of aspirin nearby and be shocked by nothing. Also, don't be afraid of what people are saying that AI is going to eliminate jobs. This is happening in the programming space. I totally get that, but not in other areas of cybersecurity and forensics. You're going to always need people, and you're going to need people who have AI skills. Using AI is a skill. A lot of people don't realize that. They'll say, oh, well, I don't need to do the work. I'll just have AI do it. No, using AI is a valued skill. There will always be bad people trying to do bad things. And it will take people like us to bring them to the light to keep our society working.
I totally agree with that. And on the topic of AI, with how it's affecting different levels of the workforce, as a creative and a writer, it's obviously something in my realm people are witch hunting others for. And I was very against it at first, but as we've moved on, I started to see it's not that I was against the tool, it's that I'm against that there's no laws, there's no ethics, and we have such a Wild West scenario, which is basically what you were saying, of what is going to happen in the next 10 years if we don't all come together and look at what has happened in the early 2000s, what has happened consistently with digital evolution, and how it's going to affect these young people in the future. We have to do things to make sure they understand ethics and laws. It's like the old quote, technology is like an axe in the hand of a madman, but in the right hands, it can be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and I agree with that. One of the things that people don't realize what is happening is the only way to really rein in AI for society instead of using it against society as what's been going on is for the world to get together on it to create these rules. Right now, you've got a new rule that our president has gone ahead and said, let's take off the training wheels, let's take off the guardrails for AI for the next 10 years. And the reason is because the US is in a battle against the AI that's happening in China. We're trying to make sure we stay ahead. China's trying to get ahead of where we are. And that is what's making this a more and more dangerous world because we cannot get together to make these decisions in order to keep this from getting worse than it already is.
Right. So, what message do you hope readers will take away from your book?
Individual relationships with people, in my opinion, and I hope so many others, are more important than anything that is happening online. We've become a distracted and detached people, and we need to rely on each other with family and friends that really do care about us rather than faceless companies who only want us for one thing. They have a one track mind. And I have an amazing wife and family, and I feel very bad for those who don't have that kind of support structure in their life. If you don't have that today, I hope what you take from this book is that you strive to build this, as so many people are looking for a connection that they just can't find on TikTok.
That is so true. So, what's next for you? Are there any new projects or stories you plan to tackle in the future?
Well, I'm continuing to make new educational courses to help students gain traction that will help them, continue with their education and get the job of their dreams. However, I may not be using the same vehicles for presenting these courses. Many companies that I've submitted courses, that I've been contracted with, such as LinkedIn Learning, Pluralsight, O'Reilly, and so many others, Cengage, they have told me that they're canceling all my courses. I just found this out a couple of weeks ago. So, I had some courses that were already lined up, some contracts, money has been exchanged. And I said, hey, what's my next set of courses that we're going to do in the fall and the winter? They all said the same thing. They have lost so many government contracts due to Doge, and also they've lost so many university contracts because they're afraid they're not going to be able to receive as much money from the government as was originally agreed to. So all these educational companies have just canceled not only my contracts, but most everybody else's contracts for creating new educational content. That means that a lot of the up-to-date content about AI and all the other fields in IT are not going to be updated for a while. So I have to find new vehicles for presenting my courses. So for now, I'm creating certification courses and other types of courses, and I'm just putting them for free on YouTube. So I will go ahead and put those out there until something changes, something, for the better changes. and we figure out what we're going to do next.
I will definitely link your YouTube in the description about this so people can go and check out what you have there. And I will be checking it out too, because this is very fascinating and interesting, just as a side note of things that I'm interested as a person. I'm really, really grateful for your time. And I don't really have any other questions for you today, but you have shared us an incredible story. And I think that your insights are invaluable now. Your work has a fascinating look at how a single person's expertise can have a ripple effect on history. And that's amazing. So, for our listeners who want to learn more about your work and your book, where specifically would you point them at?
Well, for now, you can get the book on paperback as well as audio and Kindle on Amazon.com. Just type in "This is IT" and just type in my last name, McMillen, and you'll be able to find it. It's going to be in other bookstores as we get closer to the holidays. And then my YouTube channel is youtube.com, and then just put in a / at techpub, TECHPUB.
Awesome. Well, that's perfect. I'll have that in the description, and I encourage all of my listeners to go and check out what Robert's sharing with the world. Again, thank you so much for your time today, Robert.
Well, thank you so much for having me.